Hey yogis, welcome back. It's been about a month since I made one of these videos for you, which is crazy. I hope everyone did okay during the storm. I think I've talked to most of you, and I think everyone did okay. But for those of you who had some damage, I hope that things are starting to come back together and that we can finish this semester together strong. What a wild ride this has been. With that in mind, I actually think our topics this week in our module are pretty timely. So we'll get right into it. I'm trying to keep your work right now as condensed as possible. If you read my email, you will know that I went ahead and removed our assignments for the rest of this semester because we're actually over our required number of hours. And given the circumstances, I know everyone has a lot of work to do for their other classes, so I don't want to put more work on your plate than necessary. So I'll try to keep these videos as short as possible and as informative as possible, so that way you have some material to work with for your discussion boards, but otherwise we won't have the assignments for the rest of this semester. Please read the email that I sent you carefully, because that also means that your discussion board grades will be worth 6 points instead of 3. So just so you know, that's what's happening. If you have questions, let me know. But moving right along here, again, our info or our content this week is pretty timely. So chapter 10 in Living Your Yoga is about control. And really about the emphasis is on letting go. And that's a really important mantra in yoga, let go. If you take restorative yoga classes, not just restorative, but a lot of restorative classes will have the mantra, let go. Inhale, let, and exhale, go. Because the yogi is constantly working on letting go. Sometimes we call this practicing not being attached or unattachment. Because when we are trying to control the world around us, that means we are attached to what's happening. I really like to think about this in terms of expectations. It's not just about attachment to physical things, right? It's an attachment to the way we want things to be. And it doesn't really serve us well as yogis to have expectations, to hold expectations for others, or for, not to say we shouldn't have expectations of ourselves, because we should, but to keep them within realistic boundaries. In my yoga teacher training, we talked a lot about this, that when we set expectations for the world around us, we will be let down, right? It's just the way it's going to be. No one is going to behave the way we want them to act all of the time. Nothing is going to go the way we want it to go all of the time. Now, again, that's not to say you can't have any expectations, because you can, right? They have to be realistic. They have to be articulated clearly, but it also means that when the outcome isn't what we expected, we cannot be attached to that and upset. We let go, right? So I really like a quote here in Living Your Yoga. Let me scoot back to the right chapter. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen. This is chapter 10 in part 2 of the book. And it says, again, my page numbers are all funky here on my digital copy. It says, whatever we feel in our bodies is our truth. For example, the resistance that we feel in a yoga pose is not the problem. It may be exactly what we need. And it certainly gives us the opportunity to let go of control. Working within the limits of the resistance means that we let go into exactly how the body is in this moment. We must be willing to do the pose as it is today, not how we think it should be. We may not like it, but it is the bedrock. It is the bedrock truth for us in that moment. Refusing to acknowledge that will create conflict. And if the end goal is for us to find that level of stasis, we have to be prepared to not create more conflict for ourselves. So when we are creating these expectations for the way things are supposed to be, and they don't go that way and we're upset, we are creating internal conflict. So the idea here is that we always just sit with what is, even when we don't like it. And that's just the way life will be sometimes, right? Things happen and there's not a lot we can do to control it. I think this is pretty hard for our culture particularly. We really like to be in control of things and sort of have things go our way. It's a little bit Western. So this can be a little tough for us. And I really like this example in the book because the yoga practice, this comes up a lot. There'll be postures, for example, like I see them all the time in myself and in my yoga students, like arm balances and inversions. People really, really want to do them. And when it doesn't go the way they want, if they can't get into it, they get upset. or if maybe like yesterday they were able to nail a perfect headstand, and then 2 days later they're not able to, they get really upset. They expect themselves to be able to do it perfectly every time. And what this reminds us is things just don't go the same way all the time. Every day, every breath, every moment is a different experience, and we have to be willing to just go with the flow and let go. And I think this really taps into resistance versus wanting more, right? Are we resisting something because we want it to be a certain way, or are we trying to get more out of something because we want it a certain way, rather than just sitting with what is? So that's just a little information here about control. I'll let you guys talk more about that in your discussion board. And then in Chapter 12, we look at patience. And I think this is interesting because Judith Lasser starts her Chapter 12 off right off the bat saying Patanjali does not really mention patience, but it's something that needs to be practiced. And I think if we are letting go of control, we are inherently being patient, right? Because if things aren't going the way we want them to go, but we are sitting with that, we are being patient. So this is really a matter of allowing life to unfold without forcing it. What I like is that she asks us to think about, when do we start to lose our patience? When do we want things to be more than what they are? For me, I experience this a lot when I'm writing. I don't know why. It's really interesting. I get really impatient when I first start to write because I don't know what I want to say, and I don't know how to get there, and there's all these ideas, and I witness my own impatience starting to emerge. Or when I'm driving. I learned to drive in Maryland, which is a problem. And so, I can get a little impatient driving for sure. But she asks us to notice, when do we start to lose our patience? Because when we are being impatient, we are trying to control the situation. We want it to be the way we want it to be, not the way it is. Let me hop over into this chapter here. Give me 1 second. Oops, sorry. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons. I hit all the wrong buttons again. I'm so sorry. Okay. I like this here where she says patience practice. You can use your yoga practice as a way to explore your relationship to patience. For example, pick a seated yoga pose, such as Lotus Padmasana, Sage Pose, Siddhasana, or Seated Mountain Pose, Tadasana variation, that you can hold for 2 or 3 minutes. You can practice this pose alone after basic relaxation Shavasana at the end of your regular yoga routine. Or if you're not practicing yoga right now, then maybe after you work out. Once you are comfortable and settled, bring your attention to where you feel the breath in your body. From that place, follow the movement of each inhalation and each exhalation, and notice what arises. Are you bored? Waiting for time to pass? Drifting to thoughts of the past or the future? Can you bring yourself back time and again to the movement of breath? Notice, too, the more pleasant experiences such as calmness, clarity, and equanimity. Whether pleasant or unpleasant, can you contain your experiences? And I think this is really important for our culture because we have to be stimulated all the time. This isn't just about being patient when things aren't going your way. It's also about being able to sit in stillness and be with nothing and with no one other than yourself. The yogi believes that everything you need is within you. And when we are constantly on our computers and on our phones and watching Netflix and listening to podcasts and talking to our friends and at a red light checking our text messages, we're not sitting with ourselves. We're not being patient with what's inside. We're asking the outside world to provide us with clarity, which according to the yogi is not going to happen, right? Or to give us something that we need. So to be patient also means to sit with yourself and uncover some of the muck that might emerge, or to sit with yourself and witness pleasant experiences and not get attached to them. So it's a lot harder than it seems. This is why a lot of people don't like meditation, because they're twiddling their thumbs and what am I going to do now? I have all these things to do. It's hard. It's hard for us to just sit with patience. And I think the last week, well, I shouldn't say week, the last month of our lives as Wilmingtonians was a lot of this. There was a lot of patience practice here because a lot of us didn't have power. A lot of us were displaced. A lot of us had evacuated and there was nothing to do. So we just had to sit and wait and try not to control the situation and just be patient with what was happening in our lives. So like it or not, I think we got a little bit of practice with this. So hopefully you can maybe relate your experiences. It's always helpful when you can take what you're doing in your regular life and apply it to our yoga practice, and then take your yoga practice and apply it back to your life. So hopefully this will give some context to it. If you have any questions about this material, let me know, and I'm looking forward to reading your discussion boards. I hope to see you around campus. I just ran into Brenna in the hallway a few minutes ago, and I don't think I've seen anyone else recently, so come see me. I'm in Morton 122, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.